Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stewart Paintings. On today's easy acrylic painting tutorial we're going to learn how to paint water. I'm going to teach you how to apply a base coat, how to mix three realistic tones of blue to create ocean waves. So you're going to learn how to paint water, how to paint waves, and also how to create realism in your work so you can create this gorgeous acrylic painting. So let's get into it. So as the tutorial is so easy today, you only need white, some cobalt blue, a dot of purple and a dot of black for today's tutorial. So I've got a pre-mixed light blue, a darker blue, and I'm going to show you how to make it. So to make the light blue, all we do is take lots and lots and lots of white, some cobalt blue and a dot of black. And to make the dark blue, you add some of that dripping purple, so some purple, some blue, a dot of black and lots of white. So the only difference is the darker tone of blue has a little bit of purple in it. So this one is cobalt blue, dot of black and lots of white. And I'm just going to use a big brush, and all we're going to do is we're going to cover our whole canvas in that light tone. Now I'm not going to paint my canvas burnt sienna today. Hooray, everyone shouts. All I'm going to do is just fast forward the video, because all I'm doing is just applying that light colour as a base coat, and that's going to be our base coat of our lightest tone for all our highlights. And all we're going to do now is create a super easy way to paint water. We're going to create all the shadows. So we're going to take some blue and black and mix it together. So blue and black. So I've got it pre-mixed, which is Prussian blue. And all we're going to do, I'm just taking a flat-headed brush. I'm just going to apply some waves. Now, if you start at the bottom of your canvas and you just leave gaps, and all we're going to do is create some squiggles, and we're going to leave them quite far apart. Now the reason we're doing that is we're going to try to create depth and realism in your artwork by creating big waves at the bottom with big dark shadows, so they look bigger and they're more squiggly. And we're going to create lighter, smaller waves at the top of our canvas, and that will give the illusion that your water is fading off into the distance. So all I'm doing, I've mixed some blue and black. I'm just going to really darken up this bottom corner. This is going to be a very big wave and a very big shadow. And also it's because I want to frame the painting, so I want our water painting to look very nice. And at the top, as I say, we're going to get flatter and we're going to get the waves smoother to push them back. So all we're doing, we're just creating quite big chunky shadows, and we're just using that flat-headed brush just to create the impression of texture in our water. So all I'm doing is just creating sort of shapes in the water. So if you can see, I'm just creating sort of divots. And I'm leaving plenty of gaps in the underpainting because we're going to put some nice shadow tones, a little bit of a medium tone between the light and the dark, and we want to leave some space for that. So try to leave just some gaps with that lighter blue and just try to create some of these round shapes. And if you can, just make them nice and smooth, a bit circular, just so they haven't got any sharp edges. Now as we move up, we're going to get a bit closer to one another. So look, they're getting a little less streaky, they're getting a bit more flat, but also they're getting closer to one another. So there's less of a gap. So can you see that? They're just getting a little bit closer, and also the waves aren't as choppy, I guess. They're not as up and down. They're very, very almost flat, but they're still a little bit circular. So just making sort of roundish shapes. All we're doing is we're using that dark shadow tone to create the illusion of texture. And as we move up, we're just getting a bit more flat, because if you ever see water in a glass or anything like that, it goes flat on a horizon. So what we're trying to do is create the illusion of distance just by getting a bit nearer to one another in the waves, and also just making them more flat. So really easy technique. And the great thing, so look, they're big and chunky, then they're getting a bit closer to one another, and they're getting a little bit more flat as they move up. And that's the great thing about acrylic paints. They're really, really easy to use and they dry really, really quick. So what we're going to do, we're just going to make, I'm going to show you how to make the medium tone of blue. So we've got our dark blue, which was just blue and black to create a Prussian blue. And to create this one that I've got pre-mixed, all we do is mix purple and blue together. So some purple and cobalt blue. You add lots and lots and lots of white, so more white than anything. So it's just a medium shade, and we add a little bit of black just to suck some of the blue out, just some of the color out. So let's just put a little bit of blue and some more white into it, and we should get the color that I've got pre-mixed, and we're going to use that in a minute just to bridge the tones, just so the shadows as we go up look like they're fading away. We don't want to have such a harsh tone. If you remember, in all the tutorials we use our shadow tones, the darkest tones, at the foreground, and as we move away from the viewer we get a little bit lighter. So I'm still going to use this really dark blue and black just up to about 2/3 of our painting, I think, so up to about here I would say. And look, if you're using a flat brush, it's almost really easy to do flat waves, and I'm just leaving gaps in that underpainting because we've got that really realistic tone. We've got this fantastic tone already put down. It's making our life so much easier, and it's tricking your eye already. Can you see that? It's starting to look realistic already. Wow, we've only been, what, 5 minutes in? So this is cool. So look, we're going to take some of that Prussian blue and we're going to mix the two tones together. So that colour we've just mixed and a bit of that Prussian blue, just so there's not so much of a dark colour. And we're just going to create really close waves that are flat. So we're almost getting flatter and flatter. Can you see that? And they're also getting closer to one another in distance. So they're not only getting flatter as they move upwards, they're getting closer to one another. So the gap in between the waves is thinner, if that makes any sense what I'm explaining. And if the tone comes out a bit too harsh, just do what I'm doing and just rub the paint gently with your finger. The great thing is, because our underbase is nice and dry, by putting these lighter tones, so now we're getting lighter, so we're using that pre-mixed tone and we're just adding more to it. So we're just, as we're going up, we're just getting lighter in tone, and we're just loading up our flat brush. There you go, see it's a little bit lighter, just got add a little bit more white to it, and we're just getting thinner, and we're just creating the exact same trick. And look, if it's too prominent, if it's too harsh, you can add a little bit more white or just get less paint. And look, as we go up, we want to make these waves really thin and really subtle, so almost they can barely see them. And that should, as we do it and we go up towards the top of the canvas, start tricking the viewer's eyes. So if you took, say, a step back or two from this painting, it should look pretty realistic, and you've learnt how to paint water. So this is so cool. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just going up and I'm just creating the illusion of these wispy sort of far off waves, and they're more flat and they're closer together, and because of that they look further away, and because that tone, as I keep saying to you, is lighter, it's not as harsh as the ones in the foreground. It just looks like the light source with the base coat is just coming from that far off sort of top end of the canvas, and it's just shimmering down. So it's such an easy trick. Now there's the subscribe button. If you're finding these tutorials helpful, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much to everyone who is liking, subscribing and messaging me and commenting and liking. I really appreciate all this support, and it's great for me as an artist to learn from other artists. It's great for networking and meeting other artists, and for me to learn other people's channels and to see them all. So it's fantastic. It's a great community, the art world. So there we go. Look at this. This looks fantastic. So if you think this is all dry now and it's taking you, what, 10 minutes to paint this realistic water, so you could leave it there if you really wanted to, because all the composition, all the painting looks really good. You've got these really big waves at the bottom, we've got medium waves, and then you've got little waves, like the Three Little Bears, isn't it? So like you've got flatter waves at the top and more sort of swirly waves at the bottom, and because of that and the darker tones, you've got the lighter tones at the top, it looks like it's far off, but I want you to learn how to do this properly. So if you can spend another 5-10 minutes, we're just going to make it look a bit nicer, because as artists we always want to excel, we always want to get better. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use the free tones and a blender brush. So as you can see, a blender brush is a very soft bristled brush, and I've got a medium sized one, and all I'm doing is between the free tones I'm just going to try to blend them a bit more circular and a bit more softer. So I'm using the dark tone first, and then I'm using the medium tone around its edges, and because I'm using this really soft bristled brush, and then we've got the very light tone, so we've got, look, 3 tones of this blue, we've got the darkest tone, and all I'm doing is putting the dark tone on any bits of my canvas that I've missed that have a bit of the underpainting, they look a bit scruffy. I'm just making it a bit neater. And then I'm getting the medium tone and I'm almost outlining it. If you can see, I'm almost going around its outline. And any edges that have got any sharp edges, I'm just trying to make them much more smooth. So if you think of water, everything's very circular and feminine and very soft to touch and very curvaceous. So you want to try to do that with the brush. So just by using the lightest tone, just there in the corner, so the 3 tones, if you outline it in the medium tone, so look, the medium tone, so the medium tone of blue, and then if you just go around it with that soft brush, and remember this painting is dry, so all I'm doing is just softly blending the edges with that medium tone, just so it's got sort of an outline, a curvy outline, and it's just to make it look, as I say, more realistic. So as I say, by just spending 5-10 minutes more on your nearest waves, because they're nearest to the viewer, and just soften them up, let all the brush do the work. The great thing about blender brushes is they're super cheap and they're really soft to the touch, and if you've got hardly any paint and your canvas is nice and dry, if you make a mistake you can just literally get a baby wipe and just dry it off and just paint over it. So it's such a super easy way, and all I'm doing, as I say, I'm just going between the 3 tones, any little sort of like divots in the water, all I'm doing is using the darkest tone just to create little circles. And any of these really big waves, I'm putting the really dark shadow tone in the middle, and then all I'm doing is just using the middle tone, this middle tone, just to outline it. So watch, just outline it, just soften it with that really gentle brush, and just soften that outline just to make it look more water-like, I guess, more realistic. So it's a fantastic tutorial, as I say, to learn how to paint water. It is super easy. And the great thing is, if any of you have been watching, if I zoom in just so you can see it a bit easier, if any of you have been watching all my seascape tutorials and all things like beach, you can combine these tutorials. So you can do more realistic beaches, more realistic water scenes. You can do things like ponds, lilies, rivers, lakes, mountain scenes, which hopefully I'm going to cover in the future tutorials. So look, all I'm doing is using the really dark tone just to put in the middle, and then I'm just trying to soften it up just with the middle tone. So if I show you on this base one, look, put the really dark blue and black, and then we're going to use the more purpley blue, the medium tone, just to soften it up. And look, because the edges, look, they're all scraggy and they're quite sharp. You don't see water like that. Water's very circular, very curvy. So by using this blender brush, and while the tones are still while the tones are still wet, we're just going to blend them into one another and make them look less harsh and more feminine and just more water-like. So there we go, easy peasy. God, this is such an easy tutorial, wow. So as I say, just try to smooth out your waves, take your time. As I say, it's a really quick tutorial today, but all I'm doing is just going around the painting, just any areas that I think could use a divot, could use a little wave, just putting in with the darkest tone. And as I say, I'm just using that medium tone just to outline them and just smoothen areas. So any of the waves, I'm just trying to put the dark tone in the middle of it, and then just putting that smoother tone. Acrylic paints always dry a little bit darker, so if you have too harsh waves, if some of your waves where you've gone a bit overboard with the darkest shadow tone, just use the medium tone just to outline it, and it will naturally smooth and it will naturally look more realistic. So they always dry darker acrylic paints, so just remember that. And you can, as I say, do this with oils. If you did it with oil paints, it would look even more realistic because it'd be smoother and more shiny, just like the texture of actual water. So hopefully I will do some oil paint tutorials very, very soon, because I know a lot of people have been asking for that as well. So there we go, it's starting to look really, really realistic. I know when you're zoomed in this close, sometimes it doesn't, but as soon as we zoom out in the middle, it will trick the eye, and just these smooth outlines going around it, it does just take the harsh edges off. You are going to have some, and as I say, it's a very quick tutorial. You could go back and forth and make everything perfectly smooth and everything perfectly more natural, more realistic. And if you have a reference photo, if you've got camera phones, you can just go out to a park, anything that's just got water, and just try to take pictures of the reflections in the water and the light. I'm going to hopefully do some reflection videos for you guys later in the week. So hopefully I'll do another water surface one with reflections, so things like when you have trees and you have lovely reflections in the water. So look, that looks perfect. Now we've zoomed out, I've signed it in the left hand corner because we've got that lovely dark wave in the foreground. So you've learned how to put the bigger waves at the bottom that are more, that was my impression of a wave, and then all the medium waves that are less bumpy and more flat, and as we go up they're getting closer together, they're getting lighter in tone and more flat towards the horizon. And we've used our darkest tones in the foreground to bring them forward, and our lightest tones in the background to at the top of the painting to push them back, so create an easy acrylic painting tutorial for all of you. So I hope you've enjoyed how to paint water. I hope you've learned something. We have plenty of landscape tutorials now on the channel. If you have any questions, just please put them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm Murray, so thank you very much for watching and take care.